Weather report for March 23rd, 2021. I'm 25,650 days old today.
And I'm 36, 1984, December. I don't know. I'm old too.
Yeah, but I'm going to be 25,666 pretty quick.
Oh, shit. The mark of the devil.
Yes. And that's going to be sometime in early April. Pretty cool, eh? Pretty cool. It's going to be a big day for me. Big birthday. The 666 birthday. I like numbers like that.
I mean, originally it was 616 to talk about Nero, but whatever.
Yeah. Where does 666?
I can't remember the number of days I've been alive. I don't know what my number is.
You haven't been counting since you were born? Well, you got to keep track. You got to start when you're born, otherwise you lose track.
Yeah, I guess I can do a little. I have a little query I can do that will just kind of calculate it on the fly.
Yeah. Yep. So, what's happening out there in the YouTube world? Anything happened last night that I missed because I wasn't really paying attention?
I mean, not that I know of.
Yeah. Well, a couple things did. Praise had a stream. And Argatha and him were going over the Bible again, looking at the arcane exegesis of biblical terms and the flood, and they were trying to figure out Noah's flood last night.
Oh, you mean the biblical terms, the biblical words that Praise knows better than many. Yeah. Many grew up learning Hebrew from elementary school.
Yep, that one.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I have confidence in that one.
Yeah. But I didn't listen to any of that stream, and there was one other stream that I noticed last night, and I forgot what the fuck it is. There was also yesterday was Behe and Sal, right? Was that yesterday or was that the day before?
I think that was yesterday.
Oh, that
was Behe and Dr. Dan.
Behe and Dr. Dan, and then
they had an after show.
Yeah, and then Sal and CRISPR got on later. And I didn't follow a lot. I started with going through the CRISPR stuff, but I didn't get a lot of it. If he shows up today, I'd like to find out what his impressions were of talking to Sal. And Erica was there.
Excuse me. I wonder if Brainbug has a bug to feed, and we could put him on camera like before.
You got a bug to feed?
I mean, that was honestly cool, but at the same time, kind of
disturbing.
Yes, that's the word I was looking for.
It's very scientific.
Okay, yeah. Cool and disturbing is exactly what I want this channel to be.
Because I mean, it's like we were watching life being raw, right? Just what I mean. Yeah. Survival of the fittest. Although fittest in a sense.
For a long time, he was chewing on him. And then he decided to bite him in half, and then he just sat there like, "Ooh, I bit him in half." And I think he was like eating the ends of it, but it was pretty cool. So
it was. So you know what?
Rainbow has a comment.
I've decided midnight is the new weenie. Why? What the fuck did I do?
Danny hasn't showed up. Well, because you were picking on his bugs, man.
No, I wasn't trying to pick on your bugs.
How would you feel if some fucking alien came in when you were having steak dinner, started picking on you? I
mean, I'm not an alien. What the fuck?
Like calling you disturbing. It's like, God, that's so disturbing watching you eat that cow.
But I'm not Midnight. I'm Tanya. Who's this Midnight?
Yeah. I don't know who this Midnight character is. Anyway, so I looked over some of the Sal stuff, a little bit of it, and there's a new person, and I want to stalk him. His name is Ben X Ben Rex 777. And he seems to know some stuff. And he seems to be somebody intelligent that people can talk to.
Well, let's say his name 3 times and maybe he'll show up.
Ben Rex 777. Say it again.
Ben Rex 777.
That's 3 times.
All right, maybe we'll have him drop by then.
We'll see if the magic works.
Well, it's always interesting to encounter a Sal video.
Let's see.
However, I'd like to bring something up, kind of a quick question. Hopefully people in the chat are listening. But, Midnight and I were talking about that book I was reading called A Mind for Numbers. And it made me think about educators and people with, who study education all their lives and everything. And have they ever really come up with, like, since the mid 20th century, with new methods for learning that actually enhance your ability to learn important stuff? Or is it pretty much the same stuff they've always been doing, except repackaged?
Well, they came up with that modern math thing, remember? That really,
they do that every 20 years or so, don't they?
Yeah, but I mean, there was like a big change, and I can't remember what it consisted of, but boy, parents hated it. Because they were.
If you mean Common Core, that is the worst fucking thing ever created.
Read what?
If you mean Common Core, that is the worst fucking thing ever created.
What is Common Core?
Oh, I figured you knew what Common Core was, but
no.
Okay. Well, it's this whole new curriculum, a whole new state standards. Jesus, I don't know everything about it, but all I know is they try to say that 2 + 2 = 5. I shit you not.
Really?
But according to Creation Myths, he says a lot of new stuff. It's so different from a few decades ago. So that'd be interesting to kind of learn, because I've wondered, you ever watch an episode of Star Trek, like, Next Generation, and they have one of those Star Trek classrooms where little kids are in a learning center or something like that?
Yes.
I thought, how close to Star Trek learning are we? To where there's new methods designed around our particular neurology, our particular learning styles, and things like that, or even things that we're bad at, but not so bad that we get put back a grade or whatever. We just have little hang-ups and methods. Like, some people hate to read, others can only learn through tactile, through actually doing it, and that kind of thing.
Yeah, and that's Dr. Dan says that Common Core is about active learning. Practice what you learn. So it's more practice oriented. So Common Core, when did that pop up? I know the new.
It was around 2009 or 2008.
Okay, the new math thing popped up in like the 80s, I think, or something like that, or I don't know. But
the way I look at it is, like, in my day and age, it was all institutionally pushed kind of learning. Like, you learn it this way, you do it this way because that's the best way for 28 out of 30 people in the classroom, maybe 27 out of 30, and those the 3 that don't get it either get put in special ed or they just have to suffer.
Yeah.
Well, it's still like that in some ways.
Yeah.
So I'm going to put an Instagram link here for Nathan Artwork, who's our resident artist, in the chat. And he's available at a price, right? You get paid to do this stuff?
Oh yeah, the comments and the likes are definitely worth the art.
Are they? Okay. Well, that's good enough, I guess. Well, for some of us. Let's see. Active learning. Common Core is K through 12. I don't know the specifics, but it's not 2 + 2 = 5.
Well, that's
okay.
Good.
Yeah, that's a good thing. Anyway.
Well, it's interesting that college has changed its approach, because the approach in college used to be just, listen to a professor lecture. My son avoided taking college classes for years. I could not talk him into going to college because he just could not think of another 4 years of having to sit in a classroom
and listen
or whatever. Yeah. It was just like torture for him. I mean, he was a good student, a good kid. He surprised me at how good he is at public speaking. And things like that, but he would not go back into a classroom if he wasn't like legally required to.
Well, he might have that thing that I was talking about that I tested high in, that audio lag thing, where basically somebody will say something and it takes like a minute to digest what is said, and it's related to ADHD, in that the reason it takes a minute for the thing to get in is because you're already processing something else. You hear the words, but you don't process them until you can find compartments to put them in.
Yeah.
And so the wonderful thing is that if you look at, tell them to look at lectures on YouTube, because you can pause those son of a bitches and you can catch up, right? And you can rewind when you miss stuff. And that makes lectures. I mean, right now I learn better from lectures than I do from written word, which has never been the case before in my life until YouTube content came out, because I can pause.
Of course, you can do lectures and provide pictures, and you can diagram something on your laptop and it be projected up on a screen. So it's a whole new world in terms of what you can do with a lecture other than just spout words. So yeah, I guess I'm feeling positive about education now, more positive.
Well, you know what they need? They need to give the students each these little placards that says pause, rewind, 10 seconds, go back 10 seconds. And then the student holds it up, the teacher has to pause and rewind.
How would you feel about that, Dan, if he was listening?
Yeah.
I wonder how he'd feel about a student holding up a pause and rewind. I'm sure he'd be okay with that. I just don't know with it popping up like popcorn, from different parts of the room.
Oh, there'd be some little asshole kid who paused and rewind, kept doing it over and over again.
Yeah.
The teacher would be pretty flustered. But that's what we pay them for, right? We give them that. That's why they make the big bucks when you teach. So Nathan, Leo is asking you a question for some reason through chat. Rather than he wants a picture you did of him
with Emily.
Yeah.
Excuse me, Amelia. I'm sorry, Leo.
Oh no, you said.
Don't at me, bro.
I haven't finished it yet. As yet, Leo.
Okay.
It's still in the works.
Still in the works. Anyway, something that that I hope they figure out about teaching is that kids need to take breaks and naps. And that's why homeschooling, I think in the future, I don't know, we might have a thing there, when it gets more virtual.
Yeah.
Because you send the kid to 2 hours of class and the kid should go lay down for a while and sleep.
Well, there was this in that book I was reading. I basically read the introduction in the first chapter, maybe the second chapter. She talked about focused and not dispersed. It's a dis word, means diffuse learning, and did talk about how important it is to step away and think about other things after doing some hard focused work. Like if you do 25 minutes of calculating and doing maybe linear algebra or whatever, and then just step back and do something else. She showed a picture of like an 11-year-old that challenged a chess pro at speed chess, and every time it was the other guy's turn, the kid would just get up and look around, step away from the table and look around at the audience and everything, and then sit back down. And he didn't beat the guy. They came to a draw, which I guess is about the same if you're beating a champion or going up against a champion.
Yep. So Ben Rex in chat started talking about the graph with the local maximum, and he said according to evolutionists, the organisms always try to strive for those, and he said now they actually need to make the case that the change of environment creates a local maximum from one molecule to the next. And I think that case has been made over and over and over again. But those are his opening comments. That's why I was alerted to him, and then he talked to Dr. Dan, I think, in CRISPR for a while. So I got a bunch of chat. Wow, you're proceeding very quickly with the cell diagram. Anyway, so the whole thing about and then Sal said, yeah, but it would have to be reverse natural selection in order to go down, from a peak into a valley and then move across the valley to another peak. So he was claiming that was one of his little gotchas about evolution is impossible because it would actually have to go in reverse. And that isn't actually quite how it works. For one thing, there are populations. And parts of that population can basically, even if there was a mutation for the entire population to basically fold into that minimum, or actually only part of the population would be going into that, and they would have reduced fitness perhaps for that particular environment. But then when the environment changed so that they were now increased fitness in the new environment, part of that population would still be thriving, or that part of those genes would still be in the population, and then when the increased happened, they would become more prevalent. So that is how evolution happens. So and there's many other ways. So have you guys seen the chart I'm talking about, the fitness chart? I'm trying to find one.
Oh yeah, I think
with the peaks and the valleys,
and then little dots across the top of the peaks to demonstrate the fitness landscape.
Yep. Yeah, the fitness landscape. And the thing is that, first of all, it's dynamic, and second, there's a lot of other things going on. You could look at, the effect that one gene would have on that landscape, but you've got to look at the effect that the entire genome would have interacting with the entire environment. So they're looking at a particular part of it, and it becomes quite complicated when you try to imagine what is actually going on. And there's not a problem there for evolution, but some people seem to think there is. CRISPR had some things to say.
Hey, Speed, I will have to say that the way you just explained that,
yeah,
I'll be the first one to admit I don't know shit about this stuff. But when
I know
talking about that landscape, I knew exactly which one you were talking about because I did catch the video. I saw Sal talking about that landscape thing. Yeah. And I did listen to what he had to say. And the way you just explained it, that really clicked with me. And that was really good. Very good.
I thought I did a really bad job of explaining it.
No, what you just explained about that, the way that works, it clicked with me. I could follow along pretty well.
Well, thank you.
I don't know shit about it. So
good. Yeah, we probably should talk more about that, because now one thing Ben Rex 77777 said, I think there's only 3 sevens. He said now they need to actually make the case, and yes, that's the point. For all of these little talking points that Sal comes up with, we need to make the case. Now, I don't like Sal so much anymore. I don't trust him. And Sal in this, did you watch that whole video?
No, not the whole thing. No, that was on his stream. That was like a 3-hour stream, but I did watch some of it, but I did catch that part of it.
Yeah, I've caught about maybe an hour of it so far, or a half hour of it. And I got some timestamps. But anyway, what I noticed is that Sal is making a lot of concessions. And the reason that he said, they shouldn't talk about irreducible complexity, and intelligent design is not science. and he makes a lot of concessions. And we were talking a little bit backstage about why he's making those concessions. And I believe that he's doing it because him and John Sanford are going to be publishing some papers. And if you want to get papers published, you will learn how not to talk about intelligent design. So the creationists are learning, right? And they're going to come out with these papers later this year. And they're going to very subtly make the case for irreducible complexity without actually ever using the words. And Sal came up with a number. There were a number of little points where he made a concession, real friendly. Sal was just real, open-minded. And then boom, he said something like, I got an example here. Let me see if I can find it for you. So, these guys are pretty goddamn smart, and they're running a propaganda train campaign, right? And we can never forget that. What they are doing is political propaganda to promote the Bible. Ultimately, it's about the Bible. He says, you can't run away from these nested hierarchies. You build proteins, you will get nested hierarchies. So I'm a little bit concerned that we'll say that they don't exist and they're problematic. And then if someone becomes a biology student, he's going to do gene browsing and protein comparisons. You can even automate it, and it'll take him 2 classes to be able to build trees, right? Him and Erica built that phylogeny tree. And it's very evident, you can see here, that the human and chimp topoisomerase are very similar. In fact, I've seen genes where the human and chimp are identical. Okay, and then he goes on. And then he says, I was pointing out is just because you can build a tree doesn't mean that there are not serious mechanistic problems. This is what I highlighted in red here. And then he starts talking about nuclear import and export signals. And how does he say it here? Even though we can build these nice little trees, something like this, subtlety like this, like the nuclear localization or nuclear export signal, is missed by the phylogenetic tree, right? So he concedes, and then he throws out his little wrench into the machine, right? That it can't happen because of these import and export signals. And so now we got another problem. But now it takes Sal 2 minutes to say that. And it takes me 3 to 6 weeks to research and find out exactly what the real deal is with how nuclear import and export signals could have evolved. And that's the point. We're always running 5 miles behind these people. So I do not trust Sal for that reason. Did I make that clear? Why I don't trust him?
Oh yeah.
I mean, it's like throwing out breadcrumbs, and you follow the breadcrumbs, and then all of a sudden you smack the back of the bumper of the car, right? It just boom, you run right into his wall, and then you've got to run out and do all this research to figure it out. But so he makes the point, and I'm looking at a transcript and I'm looking at illustrations, but I suppose I could share this for a minute. I'm going to share this for a minute, Nathan. See if I can find the, is it a Chrome tab? It is a Chrome tab.
Yeah, Sal's got that like sweetness with just covered in slime type of thing.
Yeah, I think so.
He really does.
Yeah, and he's already written me off, so I don't have any problem now about pointing out, the fact that he's been considered a little bit slimy in the past. But here's the nuclear export signals. Basically, there's a little piece. Let's see if that piece highlighted in red. I'm not sure if that's an export or an import. But proteins have little signals attached to them at the beginnings or the ends that tell the cell how to sort the proteins. To tell, do they go to the membrane? Do they go into the nucleus? Do they go into a peroxisome or a lysosome? So they got little signals. They got like a little post office address on them, right? That tells them what they're going to use. So he's saying that, well, these phylogenies are cool, but the thing is, these import and export signals go all the way back, like they're highly conserved across all life, right? All eukaryotic life needs these import and export signals, and they develop very, very early. And these things are going to be pretty well conserved. I don't think they're exact signals. They can modify a little bit and they'll still work. So it's a post office address that can get blurry. You can spill coffee on it. You can rip out a few of these things, and it's still going to get where it needs to go. And if it doesn't get where it needs to go, then natural selection will, through purifying selection, will kill the organism that had the mutation, and we'll start over again with a clean address, right? So if the address gets so smeared that it can no longer build cell membranes, obviously the organism isn't going to make it into the future population, okay? So, but the thing is, for the nuclear import signal, I went and did some research, and I mentioned this before, but I found a paper or a couple papers on them finding that signal, the nuclear import signal, in prokaryotes that didn't have a nucleus. So why did something that didn't have a nucleus have an address that said put this protein in the nucleus? Well, it turns out that it was part of the ribosomes in prokaryotes, which ended up being co-opted and used as a nuclear import signal. And I haven't done the work on export signals yet to figure out how that happens, because it takes, this is something that I could study for a year, right? And give you more and more information on it. So every one of these things take a little bit of time. But the thing is, I found traces, or I found papers that indicated there were traces back in prokaryotes before eukaryotes. They don't have a nucleus, but they have nuclear import signals. So obviously it was co-opted, that little piece got used. And that's pretty interesting. And then we got this thing, okay, with this zinc finger, right? And these zinc fingers are sort of like, they're actually like, each little row here is a finger. And they do something with DNA, topoisomerase. They split the DNA up, modify it, that sort of thing. And these are repeated, and it's very obvious that they're repeated. Well, I think Sal makes the case, well, how could that randomly have happened? Where these H's line up like that, and all of this lines up? And so I went out and did some research on how the repeats happen. And sure enough, earlier today, I dug up about a half dozen papers that talk about how in bacteria, they found these repeating segments that multiply. You start out with one of them, it gets multiplied, you get 2, then you get 4 and 8, and so that's kind of how it happens. And so there's mechanisms for all of these. So the point is that, oh yeah, we'll just get rid of the idea of irreducible complexity, but here is some irreducible complexity for you. So he concedes, and then he adds a little zinger, and every one of them is meant to show you how complicated life is. And where have we heard that before, Otangelo?
Well, that's just it. With every strategy of theirs, it's just more of the same. They just have happened upon genetics and a biogenesis to launch their, oh, this is so hard, that is so hard, kind of, or how about this little trick that will topple? I guess that you would call that the silver bullet. How about this little silver bullet that will topple the entire theory of evolution?
Yep, over and over again. And you've got to take each one of them, spend 3 weeks researching it, and knock them down and knock them down. And if you don't knock them down thoroughly, they keep getting back up again. Like the thing with fitness in Sal, he mentioned it in the beginning of the video. And you just have to keep knocking them down. Let me see if I can find Ben Rex again.
So, let me ask you, what's up with Sal now? What is he? I know he doesn't have any education in biology, correct? Or
well, he took. I think he got a bachelor's from. He admits that it wasn't the greatest university, but he got a bachelor's, I think, in biochemistry or something from some unit. At least I think so. But he somehow did it without learning chemistry, so I'm not quite sure how he did that. But
yeah. Now, what is am I correct in saying that he's possibly going to school to get a PhD in physics, or am I way off on that.
I don't think so. No.
Why did
no,
I thought I heard that mentioned.
He's got a degree in physics.
Oh, he did?
I think he's got a bachelor's in physics, and he worked for NASA, I think, for a while. So he's an engineer by trade.
Right.
And Sanford hired him as a consultant, and they have some money basically to put together. So he's working for Sanford to do a bunch of, bioinformatics and stuff like that.
Right. But he's not like further and trying to get a PhD in that, or I don't. Somebody mentioned that.
No, I think he's self-studying now. So he's just doing self-study, and I think his specialty is topoisomerase, that one, zinc finger genes, and that's kind of what they're drilling into. And he is on a published paper. He's got a published paper out there with Sanford on that subject, where they try to show that it's irreducibly complex.
Right. Yeah.
Anyway, so it doesn't matter. I mean, we're all capable of educating ourselves if we are willing to spend the time, and Sal is certainly spending a lot of time educating himself. But the thing is, I was thinking about this whole thing with, he always talks about evolutionists. And every time he says that, I think, I'm not that. That's not what I am. I'm not an evolutionist. And he said something about, well, that doesn't prove evolution. Well, that's not what we're doing. We're not trying to prove evolution. We have a theory with 1 billion facts, and we're putting it together, and we have a lot of confidence in this theory, but we're not trying to prove it, just slam dunk prove that this is what happened. What we're doing is we're trying to find out what did happen. And in order to do that, you have to have a lot of skepticism. Like if somebody comes up with one mechanism, you have to say, well, are you sure about that? Does that work? So the biologists are their own critics. We don't need these fucking interlopers telling us that we're trying to prove evolution. It just seems funny. From what I know of my own studies, I have been extremely skeptical about even how an embryo can develop. And I feel this skepticism all the time. So when I'm trying to understand something, somebody has to explain it to me really carefully so that I can see how mechanically something could have happened. And there's a lot of
evolutionary theory anymore is kind of background knowledge for scientists who are doing it. They're not trying to prove evolution. People who are study evolutionary biology and such are trying to establish different hypotheses and theories in their particular subject matter. But evolutionary theory itself is just kind of background knowledge that gets tweaked here and there. And only people like Sal and, of course, all the big wigs like Sanford and Carter and all the others, they're the ones trying to disprove evolution because of the propaganda campaign they're engaging in.
Yeah, and disproving it by just casting dirt on it, by throwing mud in its face, because you can't prove or disprove it.
Right.
I mean, and they can't prove ID, and they know they can't prove ID. They can't even begin to tell us what we would look for if ID happened, other than what is already there. So, but biology is a field where we're the reason that so much money and energy is put into it is we're trying to figure out what is happening right now, and basically what is going on right now in the world, in ecology and in biology. Nobody is invested in understanding exactly what did happen, even though the more we know about what did happen, the more we know about what's going on right now in our own bodies, in our own ecosystem, So it's kind of interesting to think about the science. But anyway, the reason I started talking about this, that if I believed that there was a creator that did any one of these things, why would I spend 3 hours this morning trying to figure out how topoisomerase is, how this one alpha helix in a zinc finger reproduced? I wouldn't. because I already know how it happened. God did it, right? So in a lot of ways, this is the idea that shuts off the faucet of inquiry, that just turns a valve and shuts off any further inquiry. We know God did it, so we don't have to worry about anything else, right?
I mean, for some, it is interesting that that for some people, God did it is a satisfactory answer, whereas there are a lot of people who are like, okay, well, God did it. How did He do it? You know what I mean? Some people are actually motivated to learn more about it rather than not, which, you know what I mean?
But then when you what was I going to say? When you have the God did it thing, why? What's the next thing that happens? If you've already found the answer to how it happened, then you quit looking for how it happened, right? I mean, if there's I walk upstairs and there's somebody moved a plant in my into the middle of my kitchen, I'm going to look for how the hell did that happen, and then I'll talk to my roommate and he'll say or housemate and he'll say, oh, I moved it over there because now I know. Now I don't need to inquire any further. So we got this, these zinc finger alpha helices that reproduced. And if I already know how it happened, I don't have to look. But I don't know how. I don't believe God did it. So I looked. And when I looked, I found all kinds of information about viruses and bacteria that give us new knowledge about what is happening right now. I mean, evolution teaches us about what is happening right now. And it's very important in medicine. And these guys are making the case that it's not important, that we don't need to know how it happened. We just accept that it happened and we try to figure out what's happening now. Well, sometimes looking to the past unlocks the present is what I'm saying.
Future.
And the future, yeah. So that's my main pushback on these guys, and that's why I think that's why I'm another reason I'm an anti-theist. Oh my God, I didn't know this. Did you know that? Did you know that fact?
What fact?
Evolution does not explain the origin of life. I mean, he's half right, half wrong, I guess, because that's abiogenesis. I don't know. Thank you, Tangela, for that wonderful comment.
There we go.
Great song. Great song.
Yep. Yeah, well, according to who, Tangelo? And then I think Maddox was making the case. Oh, he was fighting with Andrew. Where is Andrew? I didn't send Andrew.
Know.
I didn't send Andrew.
Know. You think he's being held hostage on another stream?
Oh my God! Maybe they have him. I don't know. It's hard to say. I'm going to send him a link here directly, and maybe we can lure him in. But oh shit! What was I going to say? No, I forgot. What were we talking about? What's happening?
Let's see, we were talking about before the Benny Hill theme.
We were talking about Otangelo, right?
Well, no. Before that, you were talking about how how if God is the answer, what's the point of even asking the question? Because you know how he did it.
Okay, guys, I got it. John Maddox was making the case that what the hell was it? That we're finding, new research. We're finding a problem after problem with evolution, and all these scientists are basically coming over and saying, "Oh, evolution, is real shaky," and over and over again, right? There's a Gallup poll that 5% of scientists overall, all scientists, do not accept evolution. 5% in the world, according to a Gallup poll. And if you take a look at molecular biologists, which they didn't do, I'm guessing it'll be about much less than 1%, and that 1% is these creationists, the people that pre-believe in God, people like James Tour, that have somehow are on a mission to push back on the science of evolution. And there just aren't that many of them. But Maddox was talking like science is just all of a sudden this great revolution is coming. And you'll hear Sal talk about it too. He'll say this is the greatest time for creationists because everything we're finding about biology points to God. He has said that out loud. And God, if he calls me on it, I'll have to go find the stream. But
well, it's almost like in the evangelical world. Every once in a while, you'll get a preacher like a pastor of a church who just is on this kick that it's great. We're on the verge of a revival in America, and you're going to see people coming to Jesus right and left. These churches, we're going to have to remove the walls of the church and build new walls that are further out because there's going to be so many people coming in here to the altar, giving their lives to Jesus. And it's the same thing. It's wishful thinking.
Yeah,
trying to give the impression that something great's going on.
Yeah, and they I think they believe it. And all go ahead.
I just went and said they may. Yeah.
According to classical metaphysical traditions of both East and West, God is the unconditional cause of reality. So fucking what? I mean, people like Danny.
So fucking what? Yes.
Yeah. Yeah.
I like the Mutables comment he just made. He said, "Why is Sal starting to look like Michael Jackson?" And I actually see the resemblance a little bit.
Perfect.
I like how Nathan communicates with us. He'll just, on his little canvas there, he'll write a little message.
That's convenient. The 5% number is engineers and computer programmers. Oh, yeah. Because engineers and computer programmers have a certain style of thinking, sort of a tool-making monkey style of thinking that makes them more likely. Like I noticed that biochemists are more likely to disbelieve evolution than molecular biologists because biochemists do those diagrams, those engineering diagrams, and molecular biologists do the wet work, the more messy stuff. So less molecular biologists will believe in it. Once you start studying how it can happen, you can see it. So anyway, I feel like I'm talking too much today, guys. We need to get Danny in here to fight with us about fitness, natural selection.
I mean, if you want, I could talk for you. Not really. I don't know. Biohistory is clear. All the animals, plants that have existed were not in existence at the same time.
Yes, guitar.
Good
point.
Guitar dog. Who is this guitar dog who speaks such wisdom?
I don't know. He's a new one. So Andrew Cumming, we've been talking about you the whole time. I don't know if you noticed or not, but
yeah, you probably relapsed, didn't you?
Yeah.
We all have to make it a point. If we see poor Andrew in there getting beat up on, somebody needs to jump in.
I know. Yeah, I need to grab some coffee. Like the other day, I was just like, oh, I'm tired. I want to take a nap. I don't want to. But I should because if I jumped in, Maddox would have left immediately because he won't be
right. Somebody with you that I'm sure that's probably what would have happened. I'm sure.
I'm like kryptonite for Maddox and Sal. They avoid me. They won't even speak my name, which I really.
Speak.
Here's what I'd really like to see, Erica. I'd like to see you come in here and explain yourself.
Uh-oh.
You want to see Erica come in?
I want to see Erica come in. She got some explaining to do.
Why? What does she do?
I don't know. She kind of bites in the cell, I think. I don't know. I'm not sure. I think she's biding her time, but
she just has not experienced Sal in the same context as you.
Yeah, she hasn't been part of the same email exchange.
And it may be she's like a creationist whisperer.
Yeah.
Like she just knows how to stay in a good place whenever she's discussing science with them.
Yeah, and her and David Neff, I got to admit, they get into some streams that I will never get into. So they have a good strategy. But anyway.
So what is a soft science immutable?
A what?
He said I would dismiss it as being a soft science, but I'm trying to read up, but it's moving too fast, which is a good problem to have. Now we have 31 people watching, which is great.
We only have 10 likes.
People added their likes. I would like to encourage other people to like or subscribe or both to this particular channel right here that we're on.
I wonder if Darth is watching. What do you think?
I don't know. I doubt it.
Oh. I don't know. I think he's going to keep an eye on this channel from now on.
He might.
He won't keep an eye on you. But that's a good picture there, Mr. Nathan Artwork. It's almost like you're an artist.
Tangelo is going to keep an eye on us for Darth because those guys are now very close.
Oh, yeah. They're getting closer all the time, which is really kind of scary, isn't it?
It is. I was shocked when I saw him doing that. I really was. Disappointed, probably, would be a better way to describe it.
Yeah, it's kind of like...
Gotcha, Immutable. Thank you for clarifying. I appreciate that.
Kind of like finding out the guy that's been... the electrician that's been wiring your house who you didn't really want to wire your house. Actually, you found out he was in bed with the devil.
What?
I'm trying to come up with a metaphor.
I
thought you were going to go sexual, as in something.
No, I'm trying to figure out whether I agree with Immutable's point or not, because I said that if I didn't understand biology through chemistry, I would dismiss biology as a soft science.
Yeah, I think so.
I'm
thinking that's fair.
Would it be fair to say that? Would it be fair to say that these guys are petrified of abiogenesis or origins of life?
Yeah, they're petrified of being wrong.
Yeah, I think they're just like really afraid of it.
Yeah,
like if life was produced in a lab or something like that. I mean, even Sal, I don't know, you guys must have heard him actually admit that on a live stream just recently, that it would rock his faith if that happened, if we discovered.
Yeah.
So.
But there are plenty of Christians who accept evolution, so he would have to change some of his way of looking at his faith and doctrine. But I don't, I'm not at all trying to push anybody into a different religion or a religion at all. It's just, it doesn't have to be that way. It's not either or, which is a problem in these evangelical fundamentalist circles. Is things become either or very quick.
Right, exactly. Yeah.
I was having a conversation this weekend with a Christian who has, deep faith, and he's also a molecular biologist, and he was talking about how if you have faith, if you have deep faith, you don't give a shit to prove all of these little arcane things that happen in the Bible. You just have faith. If you have faith in God and you have faith in Christianity, particularly, you don't need to know if the resurrection really, really, literally happened in that way. All you need is your faith, right? And he is an old earth. I don't know if you call him a creationist, but he is extremely open to when it happened and how it happened, and it doesn't affect his faith or his religion. He has faith, and that is the right kind of faith.
That was the line of communication, or what I was going down when I just the other day I had a conversation with Neff. You saw it the other day, Speed, me, Neff, and on Tangelo. And that was exactly where I was trying to go with those guys, is that, being, obviously we know you're being a young earth creationist, you're a science denier. I mean, you just throw it all out the window. And I tried to go down that road with those guys, both of them. I said, why? I said, doesn't it bother you that you, because actually Neff called me a science denier. And I said, really? And then I said, how much do you agree with science or the scientific community? And I tried to go down that road, and I tried to really push it down that road with Antangelo. And of course, he wanted nothing to do with that. He just pushed that away. And
when I try to do that with them, they get real slippery, and
exactly.
And like they don't even want to think. Yeah, and do you know what I think is behind a lot of this? And it would explain why they're all Trump supporters and Make America Great Again hat wearers, and they're all on the right, and they all hate anything liberal. They're looking they've replaced their faith with an us against them cult. They are a cult, and they have their us against them mentality. And it does them good to think that we're all going to hell and that the world is going to hell and, the world is deteriorating. The genome is, entropying. This whole thing allows them to be in a tribe that we all don't belong in, right? You know where I'm going with that?
Oh, yeah, exactly. I mean, I kind of mentioned that just the other day, too. And you can even go a little bit further, and some of them just completely turn it into complete hatred. I mean, they take it that step further,
Yeah, I got a question.
Go ahead.
What is the difference between a cult and a religion?
There's a definition for a cult. It usually has a charismatic leader. So that's one of the definitions. But it has
I'm sorry. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
I think one of the big things is this us against them thing, that that everybody else outside the cult doesn't have it right. I
mean, I was going to say the level of control that a leader or leaders have over the group and the us versus them kind of mentality makes up a lot of cultish groups.
I forget. I forget. I forget who made this, but if a religion passes the bite model, they're usually a cult.
Oh yeah, I've heard of that. Yeah. Is somebody Googling the bite model?
I'm about to. I was just taking a drink.
I was going to, let's see, put my thing up again here.
Okay, Erica wants a link.
The bite model.
Erica wants a link.
Wants a link.
Okay, hold on. The bite model. I click the link. Behavioral control, regulate individuals' physical reality, dictate where, how, and with whom the member lives and associates or isolates, when, how, and with whom the member has sex, control types of clothing and hairstyles, regulate diet, food and drink, hunger and or fasting, manipulation and deprivation of sleep, financial exploitation, manipulation and dependence, strict leisure, entertainment and vacation time, major time spent with group indoctrination and rituals under self-indoctrination, including the internet, permission required for major decisions, rewards and punishments used to modify behaviors, both positive and negative, discourage individualism, encourage groupthink, imposed rigid rules and regulations, punish disobedience by beating, torturing, burning, cutting, rape, tattooing, and branding. Lovely. Threatening.
Sounds like Praise's channel.
Threaten harm to family and friends, force individuals to rape or be raped, encourage and engage in corporal punishment, instill dependency and obedience, kidnapping, beating, torture, rape. There's a lot of rape in this fucking model.
Too much.
Separation of families, imprisonment, murder. All right. Information control, deception. One, deception. A, deliberately withhold information. B, distort information to make it more accessible. C, systematically lie to the cult member. 2, minimize or discourage access to non-cult resources of information, including A, internet, radio, TV, radio, books, articles, newspapers, magazines, media. B, critical information. C, former members. D, keep members busy so they don't have time to think and investigate. E, control through cell phone with texting, calls, internet tracking. 3, compartmentalize information into outsider versus insider doctrines, what you were talking about. A, ensure that information is not freely accessible. B, control information at different levels and missions within the group. C, allow only leadership to decide who needs to know what and when. I guess by this, actually, never mind. 4, encourage spying on other members.
How long is this?
Long.
Okay, don't.
It sounds more. It sounds more like what the similarities between cult and religion are.
Erica is here, and we're going to let Erica talk for a change.
Are you sure?
Oh.
We're just getting unmute.
What's going on?
Hey, so did you talk to this BenRec 777 at all?
No, by the time I was really paying attention to the chat, BenRec was not as active, if memory serves, and also I just don't really engage with the chat when I'm on creationist channels.
Okay, he sounded kind of reasonable to me. Like he sounded intelligent and informed. I don't know, but I haven't gotten too far in his stuff. I know he was talking to Dr. Dan for quite a while. So
oh yeah.
He sounded based in science pilled.
He what?
Oh, I
Sounded
wish.
based in science
I hope.
pilled.
I don't know. I don't know. Anyway, he just caught my attention. New people always do when they come up with something good, but I don't know.
By the way, did you guys hear? Oh, no, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, I was just gonna say, yeah, there's always a potential there, but sometimes, I don't know. Sometimes when someone comes out of the blue, a new person, they just take it so far in the opposite direction. Like the more I've been learning about Argotha, the more I've been like, this guy's bonkers.
Yep.
Like totally, absolutely bonkers style bonkers.
Yeah,
I listened to a praise stream for about 5 minutes last night while I was screwing around playing video games, and when I jumped in, 2 things were happening. One, Praise was showing an Instagram or TikTok account on screen that was taking pictures of rock formations that look like faces and human body parts and saying that they were like petrified giants. And then the second thing was Argotha was saying that Santa Claus is like analogous to Satan because if you move the N, it says Satan.
What the fuck?
Well, hey guys,
I mean,
I'll tell you what. Leave some milk and cookies out for Satan Claus this Christmas.
And I kid you not. It was like every argument I've heard from an evangelical pastor from like the early 2000s saying like Pokemon says evolution, so it's bad, and you know, all that kind of logic. At one point, the other guy in there said, and you know, as Argotha goes, yeah, you know, they call him Old Nick. You know, in Germany, like Old Nick is synonymous for like, it means like Satan, like the devil. And then the other guy goes, yeah, and when you nick something from someone, that means you steal from them. So, and then there's a pause, and then Argotha goes, wow, I hadn't thought of that.
And you know, jail in Britain is called the Nick.
I was like, dude, what kind of conspiracy like nonsense? Who cares? Anyways, I've honestly had a sour taste in my mouth ever since the age of consent conversation. I'm just over.
Yeah,
I'm so over it.
Speed, I have a question.
You haven't heard that, not even one fraction of what Argotha has said about stuff like that. I mean, when he first popped up, I thought he was pretty reasonable too, and then it just went south from there. Some of the stuff those guys come up with on Praise's channel.
Well, I think with Argotha, I think the way he goes, like having a discussion with him is reasonable. Like he doesn't get hot-headed, but the positions he holds to are asinine. But Speed, I had a question.
They're bonkers.
I had a quick question, Speed. Can we either move me or get rid of this banner?
Oh,
I mean, I know I'm ugly, but you don't have to hide me.
Oh, come on, Leo. You're cute. Remember that.
I've only ever been cute. I'm tired of being cute. I want to be sexy. I want to be hot. I want to be attractive.
Okay, fine.
I want to
You're
be
hot
more
and
than
sexy.
cute.
You have okay.
Okay,
great.
let's get real here. No, Ryan Reynolds is hot and sexy. I'm just me.
All right, fine. You're just you. Happy? Moving on.
Okay, Leo. I put you up on top, Leo. Now you're satisfied. Now you can see your wonderful, beautiful visage.
Here you go, Leo.
Okay, he's talking about like, okay, he's worked with electrical circuits, so it sounds like he might be an engineer. Hard to say, electrical engineer. And let's see, I'm trying to get some more stuff here. Anyway, I'll have to check him out more and just figure him out. But he had some interesting things to say that brings up good conversations about fitness landscapes and stuff like that. So I always appreciate that from somebody, right? That's one of the reasons why I like Sal originally, and now I don't.
Did I ever tell you guys that Sal, who's apparently at least tried to publish in peer-reviewed journals, and Emery, who apparently has. I mean, I'm charitable enough to grant Emery? That just for the sake of discussion. Yeah, like I said, I'm charitable enough to grant it for the sake of discussion, but I mean, every individual can take it for what they think it's worth. I had to educate them on what a peer review process is and how it works. I thought that was kind of sad.
Yeah, so Emery is published. I know he's got a bachelor's. He's working on his master's, I think. But it's in biology, and he doesn't like chemistry. He doesn't like the molecule stuff.
Why? I sympathize with that, honestly. It sucks, honestly, because I'm gonna take the unpopular position here, I'm sure, but I really like Sal and I really like Emery. I think they're both really nice people, and every now and again I'll catch Emery talking about politics stuff, and then I'm like, oh yeah, this is a really big bummer.
Yeah, Sal is nice. Emery acts a lot like strangling the truth, where he comes off as nice, but when I don't care how you treat people on streams on YouTube, because when I understand what your politics is, that tells me about how you really view people and view the world. And Emery, like Praise, is a staunch traditionalist paleo-conservative troglodyte, and that just
here's the thing though. Like I think people like that can, this is maybe my fatal flaw, but I think people like that can be reached. Like I think if someone is kind on stream, there's a greater chance that they can be reached than if they're like an asshole. Yeah. But that's not to say they can be. Make no mistake, I'm not under any such delusion. But they might be. And like, I want to take a huge anti-stand against, SFT being like Emery, because from what I've seen, Emery doesn't just blatantly assert that things that are not true are true. Like Emery, at least when he's shown something that's, I've never had a conversation with Emery on something I know he's been corrected on, and he's still asserting the same thing.
As far as I can tell, he's not published. So
okay, that's fine.
I can't find.
I thought that these guys who have apparently, been a part of the process would know how it works.
Yeah, you would think.
They apparently didn't know that like peer review is not done by like a one person. It's either A, done by a board, or B, this is how it's generally done, is an editorial board for a peer reviewed publication will select. It can be single blind or double blind. They'll select individuals from that field to review the literature. But the other thing that needs to be stated is you can have peer-reviewed literature and the conclusion still be wrong. Peer review isn't to state this is true. That's not what peer review is for. Peer review is to state, look, by these methodologies, the methodologies are sound and the conclusions that they reached, while potentially inaccurate, are reasonable to conclude from their methodology. So that's all peer review is doing, is ensuring that the methodologies are sound and everything like that. It doesn't mean that what's published is true or correct.
I mean, for these guys, peer review is worth absolutely nothing until they feel that it supports them in any way. And then they're big on peer review. Ooh, look at this peer-reviewed, bioinformatics thing that suggests things are complicated. I guess ID is legit, and it's like, okay, well, what about the hundreds of thousands of peer-reviewed journals and article studies within, hundreds of thousands of article studies within peer-reviewed journals, I should say, that absolutely preclude every aspect of young Earth creationism. You know what I mean? I'm like, it's so selective, and I don't think that that's an honest practice. But that being said, I heard we're talking about Sal earlier. I want to say something about that in a sec.
Okay, I just wanted to let you know, Erica. When I went into Quantum John's stream, and Sal was there, and Emery was there, and this guy Jamie Russell. I don't know if you guys have heard of him.
We talked about this. He doesn't deserve to be called Quantum John.
Yes, he does. Because if you understand the sarcasm, it's funny, and that's why I call him that. Anyway, I was saying, Jamie Russell's a nice guy, but he he's got some weird views.
Yep,
but
I agree with that.
Somebody said, I can't remember who it was in the stream, but I think it might have been. No, I don't think it was Emery. I think he had left by that point because he got irritated with me. Anyway, somebody on that stream, and Quantum John obviously agreed with them that, well, if we don't know who these, I think it might have been Bob actually. Yeah, I think Bob Argotha was in the stream. I'm pretty sure it was him. Said, well, if because I said generally speaking, the people who do a peer review are anonymous. Almost always they are. There might be a select number of instances where they're not, but they almost always are. And he said, well, if they're anonymous, then how can we trust the process?
Oh, I'm so sorry. It's the exact opposite. If someone is anonymous, that gives them full license to tear a paper to pieces. That's
why,
the whole
yes,
point of
that's
anonymity.
The whole point, yes. Dude, I literally laughed.
There's something interesting about Sal Cordova and peer review. He submitted a paper that got rejected, and he said that in the rejection letter that they said that they agreed with the paper and that he was right, but that it didn't fit in with their guidelines. They weren't going to publish it. Well, I also noticed that Raw Matt the fruit bat, he put an image of his rejection letter up for his paper, and at the very end it says pretty much what Sal said. So I think what Sal was reading was a form letter, where they always say, well, while your results are look really good and all that stuff, it doesn't quite fit in with our journal. So they're being sweet, in rejecting you. And I think Sal actually read that as they agree with them.
Exactly.
But I would love Sal to show the real rejection letter and tell me where they agreed with them, but they said it doesn't fit in with our evolution instinct.
Well, the thing is that no editorial board at a peer review journal is going to say, yeah, I mean, we agree with your conclusions, whether they actually do or not. That's not what they do. That's a bias there. Even if your conclusions are correct, I mean, they're not going to say, yeah, we agree with you. You're 100% right. I mean, that's whether they accept you or not. They're not going to say that. That's bonkers.
I'm really, really curious as to how how that was treated behind the scenes, Ramat, that inevitable rejection letter. Right. I'm not sure why he thought that was going to go well.
The form of it was not even academically proper.
Well, he put it up for peer review to the YouTube community, like to the evolutionist gang or whatever. And I mean, the whole thing in Google Docs was just a rainbow of color because people were just marking every single thing that was wrong. It's not written up like a legit paper. It's written up exactly like someone who doesn't know how to write a paper would assume you would write one.
Like a 7th grader.
Yeah, like I said, the structure of it was not correct at all. I'm pretty sure it was center lined. That's not Well,
his method section was crazy. His method section was not how a method section is written up.
Yeah, it kind of reminds me of when I was 8 years old. I went to the theaters and saw Journey to the Center of the Earth, which tells you how fucking old I am. And I came home and I decided to write a novel. And when I wrote that novel, it reminded me a whole lot of Raw Matt's paper when I was 8 years old, because it stunk so bad. I mean, it was just such lousy writing that.
I got to be honest. I don't know if I could sit on the editorial board and have to review papers before I select peer reviewers, because some of the shit these people see, they just got to be going, oh God, what the fuck possessed you to send this to us? Are you insane?
The guy that's going to be my PhD advisor. He was on the board for a while, and he said, he was like, it's very rewarding, but it's also just one of the worst jobs I've ever had.
Really quick question, and you don't have to share this if you don't want to, because I know some people don't, just for reasons. But may I ask what institution you got accepted to for your PhD program?
So I'm not trying to dox myself, but I'll email it to you, because I already emailed it to Scott and to David Neff.
Do you have my email?
I'm not looking to get jumped by any crazed IECs. You know how dangerous they are.
I threw my email.
I know you want the threats.
I threw my email into private chat. I didn't know if you had it or not, so I figured I'd just throw it in there.
No, I have it. I'll email you.
Awesome.
Who did we lose? We lost. No.
Did we lose somebody? I do know that Andrew had a question for Erica. Is he still in here?
Yeah, he is.
Okay.
Andrew, you're up. Andrew's sleeping at the switch.
Did I hear my name?
Yes.
Sorry, dog's in the background. I can't. Hold on 1 sec.
Okay. We're trying to help Andrew recover from going on to streams where
Andrew, you gotta stop doing that.
I know. Okay. Sorry. Is the noise in the background too much, or I don't want to ask my question while it's.
No, we're good. We like the dogs to weigh in.
Okay. So my question for Erica is related to one of these claims that some YECs make, that the peer review process is somehow biased against creation or just is totally unlegit or stuff like that. And I want to hear your thoughts on that first and foremost.
I mean, yeah, it's the only thing you need to know that that's like a garbage complaint is the fact that anytime they can invoke peer review, they do. You know, anytime that they feel that they can invoke a peer-reviewed article for their favor, they do it, which suggests that it's not the peer review process they have a problem with. It's the fact that peer review frequently precludes their worldview.
That's the content. It's like that Abel guy. I think it's David Abel. He's got, I think, about 200 published papers. And I think a lot of them are published in mainstream journals. And the thing about David Abel is he never makes a point of the metaphysics. He does a little bit once in a while, but he does really detailed mathematical work.
Well, yeah.
And there's content in his stuff. He's actually kind of fun to read.
Creationists can do good science when it's not about creationism. I mean, that's the problem. Young Earth creationism is an indefensible worldview with regard to empirical science. It just is, and everyone knows it, which is why Andrew Snelling, who publishes in legitimate peer-reviewed journals, he treats geology like conventional geology. That there's a huge difference if you read one of his AIG works versus one of his peer-reviewed works in rigor. There's a complete chasm between how the data is treated, and that's very telling. I think the chat with Michael Behe was very elucidating too, between Dan and Behe, when Behe, Dan asked Behe, okay, like why aren't you doing anything to publish this stuff, to actually formally investigate it, and Behe's answer was, well, I think it's intuitive. Okay, well, if it's intuitive, then it's not really that empirical. It's not quantitative.
Yeah, I showed two of David Abel's books, and the books they're filled with very interesting semiotics and analysis of systems and biology, and he's got a lot to say. But then when you start reading it, you're like, wait a minute, he's not really making a case, which is interesting. But it's interesting to read. And he contributes, and he gets a lot of papers published. I get a paper from him from academia. I was getting them every day. Now I'm getting them about once a week from him. He's pretty busy. He's the guy that PZ Myers did a takedown on, by the way.
Yeah.
Guys, I got a question for everybody in here. What do you think the most studied artifact in all fields of sciences would be?
Human artifact or like biology?
So let me reword the question this way. Would you all agree that it's definitely not the Shroud of Turin?
Probably clay pottery. I mean, you're talking about single.
Well, no, I was just because Otangelo said the Shroud is the most investigated artifact in science.
I totally doubt that.
In science? Yeah, in science, absolutely not.
So
in science, that's such a broad category. I can't even imagine it. Like the thing about this is, young Earth creationists so frequently paint this, like Speed is right. They paint it as an us versus them situation. It's saving the soul of the country. Too bad evolutionists are wrangling the school districts, whatever. And because of that, it's like they think that everybody thinks about young Earth creationism as much as they do. They think that every time a paper is formulated, or at least sometimes when a paper is formulated, more often than it is, that in the back of the minds of the scientists, they're thinking, damn, we can't let the young Earth creationists spin this. We can't let the young Earth creationists get a hold of it. Boy, what will the young Earth creationists say? No one is talking about the young Earth creationists. Even when we're talking about biblical studies, it's such a fringe section of Christianity that like within biblical archaeology, it's not even in that lens. Like their biblical archaeology is of course a legitimate, well funded for sure, but like it's a legit. I can't. I'm bad with words today. It's a legitimate field with great folks working in it. But no one cares about what the young Earth creationists are saying except the young Earth creationists.
Are we over amplifying it because we're involved in this community, or is it really prevalent out there in the masses? Because I told you that in a church in northern Minnesota, I found out they were talking about evolution and pushing back on it, which surprised me. It's in an area where I lived, and they never talked about evolution when I was a kid, or had a problem with science. And they never talked about the Earth being 6,000 years old. But now apparently some of the pastors are talking about it.
I think it depends on the denomination. I think Baptists talk about it a lot, but it was the same thing with me, Speed. Like growing up, no one even talked about evolution or the age of the Earth.
Yeah.
Like Genesis studies.
Evangelical fundamental. It's that fundamentalist part, that subset of the evangelical churches, because they just have a direct problem and have been trying to overcome the influence of the Renaissance essentially since the 1920s. Yeah. And they push the Mary's virgin birth. They push literal interpretations of the Bible. The Seventh-day Adventists invented flood geology, and it's a social thing. It's a political thing because they just played on some video I was watching. They played Mike Pence when he was a senator or representative pushing for teaching the controversy. So there are definite sociological and political issues that we need to speak up about, and part of that is overcoming the propaganda, aspect of creationism. But as far as a scientist doing work, I don't think it's it's overly amplified.
And can I say something with regard to that? Like I think that when you hear from guys like Sal, who again I really like Sal. I think I have my own opinions on why Sal thinks the way that he does. They're totally speculations, but and they make me very sympathetic towards where he's coming from. But with regard to Sal saying things like ID is having a comeback and like all these scientists are finally realizing it and like all that stuff, I think that the crowd that Sal runs with is mostly people that already think ID is a thing. Like I think that there's a huge sampling bias there. Because like otherwise would we not see it in the literature? Would we not see that rearing its head? Because all of the papers that even like John Maddox hand selects, none of them come to that conclusion. John will present the abstract, talk about how complicated something is. I say this as someone who read and or read most of them, unfortunately, and took notes on his entire catalog of papers. And I went through the paper, looked first I would control F nano machine because I know that's what he was doing. And of course, most of them had something to do with like stuff that was easily searchable. But the conclusions to these papers aren't what John Maddox or Sal, for that matter, are coming to. They'll say something's complicated. They'll say, hey, here's our potential solution. But I don't think guys like, I can't speak for Sal, but I know guys like John won't read past the abstract a lot of the time.
Well, read that 1 hour thing I did with Otangelo where he wanted to go through and read that paper. That is really telling because he did not read that paper at all. And he did not even listen when I was reading the paper. And he had no comments about the paper other than that he wanted to show that one thing.
Well, I'm a dummy. Like, I don't understand the complexities of many of these biochem papers. But I know I've had enough of a background in science and in, biochem and ochem and stuff like that from undergrad that I can at least muddle my way through it and understand what it is the paper's trying to say. And I can work through some of the methodology. And you're totally right, Speed. I mean, you go through these and it becomes evidently clear that a lot of the time, and I'm trying not to generalize here because I know there are exceptions, but a lot of the time this is trolling for abstracts and keywords.
Yep. That's what they do.
Every time I have opened a paper that Sal or Maddox or Otangelo has referred to, it has either pointed to some blog or just has not supported the claim that they said it did. And I didn't have to do a whole lot of heavy reading. I went ahead and read the entire paper just out of integrity, but there was just no need to read the whole thing. That it's something about the topic they're pushing keeps them from reading it right.
Well, and why do you suppose it is that far and few between are instances like what's done here where the entire paper is gone through? There's a lot of skipping around to highlighted portions that in the rare event that we move past the abstract, that are for highlighting the point that's trying to be made. And I'm not saying, I've done that. 100% I've done that. But I've also gone through entire papers when the context is required. And I encourage people, when I go through only part of the paper, to go and check it out for themselves. I don't see a whole lot of that on, like, for instance, John's channel. Now, frankly, I can't really stomach his streams anymore. I don't think I've been on even viewed a John Maddox stream in like a couple months.
Agreed. The only reason I went on that one stream is because, me, if somebody's talking about cosmology and they have no fucking clue what they're talking about, I get triggered. Anyway, no, I did have a quick question, Speed. The paper that you and Otangelo went through, that's the one that he cited, that you made him read the sentence from that completely blew what he was trying to argue about. So I just wanted to read this from him. At Answers in Atheism, did you see the video where I answered point in regards of the nonsense of that paper? Well, if the paper was nonsensical, why did you cite it in the first place, my guy? What the fuck?
Yeah.
I don't get this.
Pretty amazing. And
he's going to accuse us of worshiping scientists or putting too much stock in peer review and not the facts or something like that. That usually happens at this point, where it's our problem because we put too much stock in papers and authorities and peer review.
Yeah, but they don't put too much stock in papers and authorities like, the Bible.
I mean, dude, the thing is that, like, I'm sure everyone here is aware of the absolute litany, a slew of community posts from Logical, Plausible, Probable recently. And in the same way that you get triggered, Leo, whenever he tries to talk about human evolution, I get triggered. And I have slowly just decided I'm not going to engage except to say, hey, let's talk about this, because I want nothing more than to have a conversation with John Maddox about human evolution, because it's so evident how little he knows about it.
Yeah,
but he doesn't want to know. Like he has no desire to learn about it.
He made a community post talking about how the formation of the moon and how all these things have to be 100% right and perfect and this, that, and the other. And some big object struck the earth. That was really the case. And I'm like, do you even know what the Theia collision hypothesis states? And then he said something about how I was being a hyper-literalist and didn't understand the post. And I'm like, yeah, but were you not insinuating that that hypothesis doesn't have any merit? And then I went on to say, it explains why the earth is tilted. It explains why the earth precesses about its axis. It explains why the earth rotates. It explains why we have a moon. It explains why the moon is tidally locked to the earth. It explains why the moon's rotation matches that pretty closely to the earth. It explains all of these things. So unless you have a better hypothesis, what do you expect us to hold to?
I'm not subscribed to his channel, but for whatever reason, my community, I think it's because I do follow, like, I am subscribed to, like, Standing for Truth, so I get his community posts, like John's community posts or whatever.
It also goes off activity. So if you go to their channel, even if you're not subscribed, you'll get community posts or you'll get community post channels that are in relevant categories of other channels that you watch and stuff like that.
Okay, yeah. That like algorithm stuff. But like, he posted something the other day that I thought it was a shit post at first. Like, I couldn't believe what I was laying my eyes on. It was the one where he was like, evolutionists think, or Evo atheists is the thing he's using these days, which is very funny to me. But it was like, how do they think that, random mutations can be selected for, or something along those lines? And I was like, wait a second. This is the vanguard for the overturning of evolutionary theory, right? Like, someone who doesn't understand, like, how mutations are selected for, And I mean, and here's what he does when he gets roasted for just absolutely getting BTFO'd on a very basic concept. He'll be like, "Oh, it was ironic. I was doing it to trigger the Evo atheists," and I'm like, dude, you're not fooling anybody with that. Like, it's okay to be wrong about something as long as you're willing to learn about it. But it's like, dude. Anyways, I don't like talking about John Maddox because I think it fuels his ego. He likes to know who's been talked about.
Yeah. I did want to say, Erica, I got your email, and that's fucking poggers.
Yeah, dude, it's sweet. I'm pretty psyched about it. I get the keys to my lab, which is very intimidating this summer at some point. So I'm excited.
So you're going to be a lab instructor or do lab work?
Probably both, because I'm working as I have like a graduate teaching assistantship or whatever, so I don't have to pay tuition. So it's like I'm gonna be doing. I think I'll be assisting my advisor with his work, and then I'll also be teaching labs. I think.
Very cool.
We're talking about peer review and just how much of a beast actual academic literature can be.
Yeah. I my thesis has like that. I just submitted the first draft for it. My references section has over 200 sources for it for both my data and.
I can tell you. I can tell you because I did undergrad research as an undergrad, kind of hence the name of it.
Right.
But I remember I never published anything because we didn't get far enough into it to really publish anything substantive because we didn't have enough data. But I can remember because one thing at least with my school is you're giving a presentation every 2 weeks, if nothing else, just to inform the person, your advisor, on what's being done and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And, there's a certain recommendation in terms of like the amount of sources you've listed. But I remember, and to relate it back to what you guys are saying, the way I know these people don't read is because anybody who's been like involved with actual research knows the feeling of presenting like a presentation, and the person who's judging the integrity of your evaluation knows the literature you're about to cite and knows it better than you do.
Yeah.
Yep.
If you haven't read like every jot and tittle of that paper, they'll be able to tell because they'll say something like, for instance, it happened in my it happened with the physical chem person I was working with. So we were measuring, governing reaction parameters of some, basic type of reaction. But he was like, "Oh, well, you've cited this paper. I know this article actually. What were the methods they used, and how do you know that the assumptions they made were correct?" Right? Basically, like a 10-minute detour on, like how do you know that this, that the paper you're citing is actually relevant to the type of thing you're like trying to evaluate. And it's one of these things where for us, like reading papers, we can have fun with it, but there is something to be said in terms of taking a paper seriously and honestly representing the people's work.
Yes. I think that's a thing. Oh, I'm sorry. I thought you were done. Finish.
Yeah. I mean, part of it is if you don't understand, there's two things. The way you talk about data tells a person whether or not you understand it or not. And number two, if you don't understand the theory that surrounds certain data and the types of analyses people are doing, chances are the results you're going to publish are going to be incorrect.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Because if you don't understand the theory and you're using their data as a kind of reference or, building from that, how are you going to? You're not going to be able to improve on or to kind of, to either improve or dispute the veracity of the claim the person's making.
Exactly. I think a lot of creationists don't understand how much rigor actually underlies academic research and the literature that is published around fields either broadly or more specialized.
Well, and the thing to add to that too is that it's like, and I'll, I obviously frame it. We all frame it in what we're interested in, of course. So for me, it's primates and primatology and things like that. And it's like there are hundreds of species of primate within the order. And if I cite something in a thesis that's like, hey, this is a paper on the feeding ecology of spider monkeys, like adelins, things like that. There's someone out there whose entire life revolves around knowing the feeding ecology of spider monkeys. Like there are people who get doctorates who specialize. It's narrow and it's deep. Their understanding is, And the entire scientific community relies on people who understand generally big concepts, but also the specialists, the experts on the minutia of different areas of different fields. That's why if you have a conversation with someone who has a PhD or who's getting it, or a professor for that matter, the second you stray outside of their research, the first thing they'll say is, well, look, that's not really what I studied, but I can tell you someone who does know that very well. And we thrive on the experts in these narrow fields, and this, like, literally society thrives and functions with the trust in the experts. You have a problem with your pipes, you call a plumber because they're an expert in plumbing, right? But
can I make just a really quick comment? It's a little off topic, but I think it just needs to be said. It kind of summarizes what we're talking about here. So Altangelo cited a paper about the fucking Shroud of Turin again here, and it's from Archaeometry, Wiley Online Library. This does not in any way, shape, or form say anything about who might have been underneath the shroud or whether it was Jesus. All it says is that when they, under a legal request, got the raw data that was kept by the British Museum, who did the test in the 1980s. They did a statistical analysis of that data, and it suggested that the study was lacking homogeneity in the data, and that the procedure should be reconsidered. So all it's doing is calling into question, saying, hey, look, you said it was around the medieval period. We're not so sure about that. It might be earlier, but it might be later. We don't know. We think that there was some fuzzy stuff in your dating methods, and I think it needs to be looked at. But it's making absolutely no statements other than that. So if you think this supports your case, it doesn't.
To kind of relate it to that point, I'll ask the question, and then if people don't answer it correctly, I'll explain the answer. Can you guess like the most important course of like my degree program that I had to take?
Statistics.
No, not even.
Really?
A course is in like lecture course.
Yeah, like a lecture.
And you're talking chemistry with an emphasis on biochemistry, correct?
Yeah.
Or really,
I mean, kind of math.
So the most important course I would consider that I took would be a course called Introduction to Chemical Instrumentation. And the reason for that is the first part of that course, essentially, it goes through like flash statistics, all the statistics you'll need as a chemistry person, unless you're really going to go hardcore with statistical analysis. But the reason I say that's the most important course is that this is one of the last courses you take as an undergrad. But here's the thing about it. The knowledge you have before taking that course is worthless. Why? Well, theory is fine and well, right? Quantum mechanics is a beautiful theory. Chemists use it for, understanding things like bond length and crap like that. But here's the thing. When you actually put pen to paper, when you actually want to examine some aspect of a reaction or how compounds interacting or things like that, you need to understand both the theory of how those things work, but also the instrumentation involved. Mm-hmm. So bonds, chemical bonds, for instance, typically, I could be wrong, and if I am, somebody feel free to correct me. Bonds, on average, it depends on stability, obviously, but they tend to break on the order of like nanoseconds to picoseconds or something like that. 10 to the minus 9 to 10 to the minus 12 seconds approximately. Well, that's good. But if you want to study how something is working, the way in which that bond is breaking, or the mechanism governing it, you can't use a technique that's resolvable time is larger than that, right? I can't use a time scale on a machine that measures it at the millisecond level or at the microsecond level. I need to be able to do something that can measure it on the type of time scale I'm analyzing, or perhaps quicker. But the reason for that is when you see research, a lot of times the reason research is so important is you can read a paper, and by looking at the graph or by looking at some of the preliminary analysis that somebody has done, you can kind of tell sometimes, that doesn't look right. They're studying how this bond broke, but they're using a time scale that is known to sample over the period of seconds to minutes. Really, that seems kind of unusual. Or if you're doing like engineering, I mean, the point in saying this is that there are telltale signs that people who have studied a field even preliminarily, not even at the advanced level, can kind of see, nah, I'm not going to use a hammer to plug in this wire to an electrical circuit or something like that. There's certain things that seem out of place. And oftentimes, creationists can't recognize that.
Mm-hmm. I think that's really, really true and very important. I mean, that I was thinking while you were talking, like how I was obviously like, okay, how does this apply to me, right? Like I was thinking, okay, what is it that you look for when you look at a methodology in like ecology, for example, that you're like, oh, this is either going to make or like the methods make or break the study, and looking for telltale signs in ecology, it's like, okay, well, what's the sample size? How long were you observing for? What's your period of study looking like? How often did you see the study animal? What the same can be true for paleontology. What's your sample size of fossils looking at? Like if you're trying to decide if a species is, in my case, sexually dimorphic or not, if you've got one maybe male and one maybe female, you can't make a claim on that, right? I mean, but this kind of thing, what you're talking about in the instance of chemistry, in mine, much less applicable, but with regard to ecology, knowing a field is being able to look at the methods and like you said, tell relatively quickly if this is a robust experiment or observation.
Yeah, I mean, to kind of bring it to biology a little bit, like even basic bio stuff, like microbiome, if you're plating cells or stuff like that, every microbiologist will tell you, if you're dealing with a certain type of cell, you use a certain kind of agar, or there's certain ways you deal with extraction of trying to extract a protein or some kind of molecular component of a thing. There's protocols for how you deal with certain things you need to work with in biology or things like that. If you want to observe like the activity of a protein, or like where's this protein going over time? How is it moving within a cell? Within the cell. Well, guess what? It's too small to see with the naked eye, so generally you resort to fluorescence. Usually you find a protein that fluoresces, fuse it to the protein of interest, and have fun with it. Watch where it goes and do whatever you need to do with it. But yeah, I mean, it's very, very important that when you, especially like in the academic sense, when you criticize paper, you need to know what you're criticizing. You need to like figure out like what the valid objections you're going to bring are, because researchers are well aware that that just because you're able to demonstrate something in one particular way doesn't settle it necessarily. Why? Because the notion of an alternative hypothesis, which stems from statistics, right?
Yep.
If this is in fact true, right? If this is in fact important, I should be able to measure this constant, or I should be able to measure this parameter using that experiment, which I've done already, but I should also be able to try and gauge the accuracy of that experiment using an entirely different set of experiments and see if there's an agreement between the first method that I used and the second method that I used. Because if something's wrong, either it means that I did something wrong in the experiment, or there might be some kind of special exception in terms of the method I'm trying to use to deal with the data or to deal with the experiment.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. The whole Oh, oops! I'm walking with my computer to my charger, and I just got caught on the door handle.
You gotta fucking love that, don't you?
Yeah,
motherfucking doors. They're out to get us.
Nothing makes me angrier.
And it always happens when you're already irritated, and you're like, "Oh, you motherfucker! Fucking just take the door down."
Yeah,
like,
nothing makes me see red like headphones being ripped out of my ears for any reason.
Yeah.
But what I was gonna say was that another aspect of that too is like what you just said there, is this whole idea of other factors being at play. That's why that is the whole reason repetition is so important, right? It kind of tickled my fancy there for a minute, because that's just the biggest problem in ecology. Is the relationship that I'm measuring truly what I think it is, or is there some completely unknown, unconsidered factor at play here? And that's what always needs to be considered. How much in a stats analysis, right? It's like, how much of the variation can really be accounted for with my study, with my analysis? This is the kind of stuff that, at least in my anecdotal experience, I've not seen touched on by a lot of YECs there.
Oh, I mean, there's interesting kind of dilemmas you face, especially based on the type of field you're in. So, for instance, if you're doing chemistry, for instance, there's some reactions that you want to measure, but the reaction itself takes a long, long time. And I don't mean, like, oh, it takes 5 minutes. No. Some of these reactions take like 10, 20 hours to go through. And okay, you might generate a set of significant data if you're sampling the data every 30 minutes or something like that. But if you want to get something like a statistically relevant number of samples, like 20 or 30, that's going to take a long, long, long time. In fact, too long for the course of that reaction. And what you have to do is you have to play this game of, okay, well, kind of a dilemma. So either I deal with the risk of having a smaller sample size, increase the sampling interval, or I increase the sample size and just exponentially drag out the length of time this experiment is going to go on for, by a while. And sometimes that's difficult to do, because in experimentation, hey, I would love, as would anybody else, to be able to have 200 columns of data or stuff like that. That'd be great. It'd be statistically sound and all that. But the fact of the matter is, the real world has its problems as well, and you can't always do that.
Such is the hazards of actually running experiments in the real world, right? Or observations, for that matter, right? There's always something to potentially muddle it up, and you can't know that you're properly accounting for all of them.
Exactly. One of those has happened over the last few years in cosmology. We're like, okay, we're honing in on a Hubble constant. Yeah, here's this. Yeah, have fun.
You thought.
Yeah, you thought. You thought, you cheeky little bastard, you.
Could I interject something?
Here I come to wreck the day.
Totally.
So one of Sal's favorite quotes here is from Wagner, 2005. This, however, fitness is hard to define rigorously and even more difficult to measure. And he likes it because of the last line. I define such systems loosely as assemblies of parts that carry the well-defined biological functions. You see that ... in the second line?
Are you sharing something?
Are you talking about the overly long ellipsis?
Yeah, I don't see that anywhere.
It's on the screen.
By difficult to measure. Right?
All I see is you said the last. I define such systems loosely as assemblies of parts that carry out well-defined biological function. I don't see an ellipsis in there anywhere.
You don't see a ...
No, we must be seeing different things.
Yeah. Well, Leo, we know that you see different things, so
that's your bias against science, Leo.
Yeah, totally.
Can you share the relevant paper and the relevant portion of that paper?
Yeah, he only left out one line, and I'm just wondering why he would leave out just one line. And the line he left out in addition to, for instance, okay, he left this part out.
Wait, no, I'm really confused. This is not what you read.
He read the last part of it. I define such systems loosely as assemblies of parts that carry out well-defined something.
Right, and it goes on to the next page. So,
but my question, that's the sentence you read, but then you're talking about a different sentence?
No, I'm talking about he left this part out of the quote. And in addition, a change in fitness can have many different causes. For instance, a mutation that blocks a chemical reaction in metabolism affects fitness for different reasons than a mutation blocking embryonic development. Well, if you're including a quote of that size, right, why would you just leave out those two or that one sentence? I don't.
Because remember, Speed, in this case, in the case of the creationists, it's important to always have a controversy of something, right? Whenever scientists are honest in saying that, hey, there's different ways that people refer to this, but here's the way I'm referring to this thing. Right. They capitalize on that, and instead of saying, yeah, there's different definitions, we're going to attack this one, they say, no, we don't have a working definition in that at all.
But the point he makes is this. Okay. I cut you off, Mutable. I'm sorry.
Well, my point is that instead of like creationists saying, like, and admitting the point that's actually being made, that there's some ambiguity in how researchers use terms or when a person is referring to one usage of a term over another, creationists will abstract that and delete that away and say, no. In fact, nobody knows what fitness is.
Yeah,
they define it loosely.
This is a 385-page book where Wagner talks about evolution and why, different ways of looking at it. But anyway, the part that Sal likes is this, because the part highlighted because he believes that that's Behe's irreducible complexity.
By the way, Speed, Immutable, did you guys see Behe and Dan's discussion?
I have not yet.
It's very, it's
Leo,
intense.
That's what this after show is about.
How did it go? Give me the.
It pretty much came down to Behe saying, "Well, it's not irreducibly complex unless I personally decide that it is."
Well, there the hell we go.
Exactly.
Did you follow the Kitzmiller Dover case, Immutable? Do you know anything about that?
Yeah, God.
Yeah.
To me, I mean, yeah.
Sorry.
I'd like to say that what I just heard about that situation is not atypical, but it falls directly in line from my experience, from what I recall of Behe.
Yeah, he I'm doing some work for an intelligent design video, and I'm telling you right now, Behe's testimony, which I've read all of, it's just he just said the same thing to Dan. Like nothing has changed.
Yeah.
Nothing has changed in 15 years. For intelligent design as a workable model. And I respect the hell out of Sal for being like, hey, yeah, we're not going to get a model or a mechanism for ID.
Then the thing is, you can't, two things. I think Behe, whether or not Behe personally believes irreducible complexity or not.
I've heard he does not from I saw Ken Miller discussion, and Ken was like, yeah, I think Behe probably, he probably accepts evolution, but for whatever reason, ...
Well, he said in the discussion that he accepts UCA.
Yeah.
I think there's benefits that creationists have just in terms of job security and a relative flexibility within, their life doing this creationism thing as a business and not.
Yeah, especially if they've got a degree, because these creationist organizations love to get their hands on people that have those degrees.
Oh, and the thing is, too, I mean, you think publishing a paper's hard. There's just as much fighting in regards to who's going to get a scholarship for this and what experiment that we want to do is going to get approved, or who's the next person to, who's the newest person to discover a new dark matter particle or something like that. Researchers are incentivized to make great discovery, to do great things.
Mm-hmm.
And it's a very, very competitive field, which is why you either devote yourself to the field and you pray that your method ends up working and you find something that other people haven't, or you do something else. You do industry, you do academics, or some other thing, because it's not for everybody. I know friends that have tried that route, and they are like, nope, this is just way too way too competitive, and the field is way too much of a boiling mess for me to want to try and fight and claw people's guts out for what's going on here.
Speaking of, just really quickly, kind of a little off topic, but you mentioned dark matter particle. The LHCb collaboration at CERN has published some research showing that lepton flavor universality in the decay of bottom quarks might actually be violated, which would indicate potentially other forces or particles that would give rise to that. And essentially that means that when a bottom quark decays, what it decays into, the flavor, there's going to be discrepancies in the flavor between what it decays into, and so that seems to indicate that there's something beyond the current structure of the standard model that may help explain that.
By the way, another quick question, and this is the last physics thing I'll go into because I'm not overly into, well, physics is complicated. But do they know if T violation is fully do we understand T violation fully yet?
Like time symmetry violation?
Yeah. Because honestly, it's being investigated.
Yeah, I need to do more reading into CP and CPT and violations and symmetries, because I honestly don't think I could answer that question in any meaningful way. But I do know that that's a big area in research in physics.
Because what I recall hearing about is that we know CP violation occurs.
I believe in quantum thermodynamics, I think? Or is it weak interactions?
CP violation occurs, but if T violation occurs, it doesn't necessarily imply that CP violations would occur. There's something about T violations that can kind of muddy up the complete trifecta of CPT violation as a complete phenomenon.
Yep.
James is here, James Downard. So Nathan, I think you should sell this to Sal Cordova for money.
Probably $750. I think that'd be fair.
Yeah, because he has a Creationist Institute money, I think, or AIG or one of them. So
yeah, and he can also, if he has, I don't know if he has the number of subscribers and stuff, but he could also do like super chats and stuff.
Yeah, and if you give it to him for free, I could sue you based on copyright because you're doing it on you created it on my channel.
So I just wanted to, because it touches on what Emil just said, and I'm quoting from Wikipedia. They don't have a source for specifically this, so take it for what you think it's worth. Efforts during the late 1950s revealed the violation of, and just so everybody knows the terms, CPT, charge parity, time reversal. They're just symmetries between the charge, the parity, and the time of a particle. Efforts in the late 1950s revealed the violation of P symmetry by phenomena that involved the weak force, and there were well-known violations of C symmetry as well. For a short time, the CP symmetry was believed to be preserved by all physical phenomena, but that was later found to be false too, which implied, by CPT invariance, violations of T symmetry as well. Did I cut out?
Cricket.
I don't know what you said.
Above my head there, Leo. I want to know why, Speed. I want to know why you're going after Sal. Why don't you like Sal?
Why am I going after Sal? Well, Sal decided to divorce me or break up with me, and he hurt my feelings. He said I irritated him.
Trouble in paradise.
Oh, and then there's that time you said he shouldn't be teaching children.
Yeah, and he blocked me on it. Yeah, and he blocked me on his site, and he did a number of other things, and we had a little email exchange. And then I said, well, Sal, now that we're not friends anymore, I can go after you. But anyway, yeah, I'm going after Sal because I don't know if anybody realizes it or not, but the true evil is going to be these people that say things like, oh, ID is not science, and they concede, right? They concede, and then they throw out a little spanner, a little wrench in the works. And Sal is producing content that convinces people more so than other people, and that's a good reason to go after Sal. So, because he is basically producing misinformation. So,
you want to go outside?
That's just my opinion, Erica.
No,
I know you like him, but I think you're going to learn that there's more to this man than the surface reveals. So.
Well, Sal and I go way back. We used to argue on the Debate Evolution subreddit a couple of years ago, and he was something of a contentious figure back then as well. He has. I want to make it well known. He's chilled out a lot since kind of how he used to.
Yeah, did he chill out, or did he find a new way to approach it?
Yeah, I guess I just don't see it as that nefarious. I think that Sal has had a lot of life changes. I think his mom got sick in between that, and I know that he's had a there's this interesting phenomenon. I don't know, maybe you guys haven't noticed it, or maybe I'm just seeing a pattern where there isn't one. But a lot of people who are very vocal about ID have had some kind of very life-changing NDE or something. Right.
Yep.
You see it with Sal, you see it with John Maddox. There are a lot of folks in the public sphere, the pro YECs or ID folks who've also had these life-changing experiences. And I wonder if that doesn't add to a sense of dissonance there, right? Because it's sorry, go ahead.
Actually, I was just clearing my throat, but yeah, a little bit. But when we go backstage, I want to tell you something about a life-changing experience that happened to a YouTuber that you really don't like at all. There's more to this story than you know. But anyway, there is these life-changing events, and that basically adheres them to that Christian belief or whatever belief happened to take over. But remember when I warned you all about Stanley, and nobody listened to me?
No, that's true. Yeah, I got burned badly on the standing for truth thing. I gave him way too much benefit of the doubt, and he's just kind of a vitriolic mess these days, at least towards he's managed to. It's a really interesting transition because he's managed to completely insulate himself in that channel, and his whole spiel on the outset was well, Standing for Truth is the guy who, the second that he sees someone talk about evolution on a public platform, he wants to debate them on MDD. He had this whole illusion of take all comers, and he'll defend against anybody, and he's done all these, he hovens. He goes around hoving. But that's kind of gone on. The more he's insulated, cloistering himself back in the channel, and now he just publicly refuses to debate anybody except on his channel. And well, he's also got really bad behavior, and I don't know. I'm just not into it.
He's building a ministry. It's pretty obvious, what he's doing.
100%. Yeah, 100%.
And I saw that over a year ago. I saw that man coming, and that man is going to keep coming until, probably long after I'm gone. You're going to be remembering my words about him and his ministry. So,
well, the thing is that one of two things are going to happen, right? Every now and again, it seems pretty cyclical when you take a step back from the inception of Seventh-day Adventism, right? Every now and again, creationism rears its ugly head and comes back into the public sphere, and then it gets BTFO'd out in court or by scientists who are okay, it looks like it's getting attention again. It's time to have another intervention with the public. And then it goes away again. So maybe, one of two things are going to happen, in my opinion. Standing is either going to fizzle out and go back to doing whatever it is that he does. Sorry, I've got a gamer in my house right now. Or alternatively, the other thing.
Did he just die?
Yeah,
he just died, didn't he?
He died or something good happened. I can never tell. It's aggressive either way, so you can't tell.
Exactly.
Did you see this? Did you see what Otangelo said? Okay,
yeah, it just makes me laugh.
I spent an hour trying to get him to read that paper. I spent an hour trying to get him to read the
the fun thing about this, the fun thing about this is we've read about 2 or 3 papers on this channel. I haven't seen Otangelo read a goddamn thing.
No. Just
yeah, my kitchen just blew up because my irony meter was in there. Thank you.
The thing is, D'Angelo, here's the fun thing. You and Speed have tried to read a paper together, but you didn't want to read the paper. You wanted
it was nonsense.
Of the paper. Please explain to me your superior reading skills.
Isn't that where he said the contents of the paper was just assertions?
Yeah, except for the one sentence that he wanted.
The one sentence he wanted to 10 to the 130th. That's the only he just wanted that one number, that 10 to the 130th. He didn't read any of the other shit. It's like, God. Oh. Anyway, guys, we're coming up on 4. We should shoot this thing in the head. Because actually 2-hour streams are kind of pleasant for people. So
I'm just getting warmed up with this. I mean, I've yet to believe that he can read, let alone have any level of comprehension of what he's reading.
I know.
Well, it's really, to say a last thing, it's really, really interesting that after the Behe conversation that Dan had when Sal hosted the after show, Otangelo and Sal spent a very large portion of that after show before myself and David hopped in, just talking about evolution and complicated things and how could these complicated things evolve? What about the complicated things? What about abiogenesis? It's complicated.
Origins or bust.
Well, and the whole thing I'm thinking is like, okay, but the whole conversation with Behe was about irreducible complexity and Behe having a legitimate model. So it seems really interesting that like that's what folks who are abio or bust always go back to, or like ID or young Earth creationism, whatever. It's like the second the heat gets turned up, it's maybe we don't have a model, but have you seen how complicated this is? And
it's this. Hey, we don't have a model, but just look at the trees. Just look at the trees.
I'm going to add to that in saying this much, right? Here's the fun thing, and this applies more to just science. Anything at all, if you take enough time with it, will become complicated as anything, right? You can take your time studying one sentence out of one book by one person, right, and study it your entire life, and there are many complicated aspects to that you can find and parse out and all this other fun stuff. But things will always stay complicated until you develop a way to untangle that web of, to untangle the web, that all that chaos is being trapped in. There has to be a way for you to be able to discern what is intelligible from what is not. That doesn't necessarily imply correctness. That's a very strong claim to make. But if you're never able to show that what you're putting forth can be affirmed or can be falsified, as is the case with ID and YEC, nobody should take your view seriously.
Yeah.
And the thing is, nobody should take, a scientific theory seriously that does not allow itself to be tested or falsified. Mm-hmm. Because ultimately, that is not science. If there is no way for me to debunk or to, retort against an argument that you've created, your argument is not falsifiable. And as a result, your argument doesn't have merit. Right? Not in the endeavor to find knowledge that is accurate and representative of the world around us.
I highlighted a point back to the Wagner paper or book. I highlighted his a pretty important point. Why can unimaginably complex systems withstand so much change? As we shall see, biological systems are indeed robust on all levels of organization. And he goes on to talk about proteins can tolerate thousands of changes. And he is making a case against irreducible complexity in this paragraph, if you could see what Wagner's whole point was. But what Sal quote mined, when he left out that one sentence, ended up looking like he was agreeing that it was assemblies or irreducibly complex. I just wanted to point that out. But it really pays to go and hunt these quotes down. And sometimes it's hard because they change a few words. and take a look at what the author really was talking about, because it is so different from what they portray. And that is what we're up against, boys and girls. I don't know. Anyway, okay, go on. I'm sorry. I took it in a different direction. Wagner's again.
I think that that's wholly appropriate. I mean, you know, what gets me to sleep at night is the fact that, you know, so long as people care about having a society that's dependent on technology of any kind, science will have a foothold. The same can't be said for, you know, certain sects of Christianity like young Earth creationism, which, you know, they rely entirely on public perception and have pretty much zero application. So, you know, unless it's constantly fertilized, it's basically destined to wither eventually.
Yep. And our mentor, James Donard, says source methods, follow the sources always. It's the only thing you can do. But God, it takes time. I'm telling you.
It does.
It does. It's a thankless, exhausting task.
Yeah,
you have other
exhausted.
But it is one that is seemingly necessary.
Yeah, and I want to end my stream. I'm so exhausted. So, can we end, guys?
Yeah, I'm good.
Well, yeah, it's your stream, man. You ain't got to ask us. Just end it. Just be like, guys, why are you talking?
No, I got to ask you. Does anybody have anything they want to plug? Well, we're going to plug this shit. Oh my God. Oh my
I do
God.
want to say, for anybody who hasn't already seen it, or if you just want to see it again, at 6 p.m. Central Standard Time, I will be premiering my brief interaction with Darth Dawkins on my channel.
Beautiful.
Okay, good. I got like 450 views on the one I did. So, and I linked your channel, Leo. So
awesome.
Okay.
Me and Jackson and Dapper, I think, are doing a prehistoric animal tier list tonight. We're all kind of bored, so.
Okay, cool.
Oh, really? What? Whose channel?
On mine, we're just going over some Proterozoic Paleozoic organisms.
Is it going to be broadcast tonight or on?
Yeah, it's just going to be us screwing around live and talking about prehistoric creatures. Jackson knows way more about the early periods than I do, so I'm sure I'm going to get an education on some of the early Ediacaran critters and stuff like that.
What time y'all start?
9:30. It's late. CST.
Do you have it already set up, Erica?
No, I still have to do a thumbnail. I still have to run. I've had a very unproductive morning and afternoon.
Okay. I think you earned it.
So, okay, guys. So we're going to end the stream. Goodbye, cruel world.
Top dog, what do you want?
Stay curious.
Oh, okay.